I've done a lot of research on the web for the last few weeks looking for information to help me with this channel. I've been surprised by the number of people who have posted their stories about leaving the Baha'i faith, a lot more than when I last did this kind of research about 10 years ago. With a few notable exceptions, I've seen a lot of people still clinging to the Baha'i faith and belief that Baha'u'lláh was God's messenger, even though they were expelled from the Baha'i faith in one way or another, or left voluntarily. Some are calling themselves unenrolled Baha'is, others have joined some kind of group that the main group calls covenant breakers, others are going to the Unitarian Universalist Church but calling themselves Unitarian Baha'is. That's a lot of people who are not actually in the main Baha'i faith anymore, but who still cling to Baha'u'lláh. I will go on record here and say I no longer believe that Baha'u'lláh is God's messenger. I think the Baha'i faith started as a cult, and that the entire thing has turned out to be a bit of a mess, from the Babi battles to the passing of Baha'u'lláh, especially considering that the sons of Baha'u'lláh couldn't get along. It breaks my heart that so many people suffered and even died for these religions, the Babi and Baha'i religions. Even today there are people in prison for being Baha'i, and many others in Iran are persecuted in other ways, just as Christians are being persecuted in Iran and Iraq. I could not be associated with any group that calls itself Baha'i. None of this makes sense to me anymore, except as a demonstration of how convoluted, confusing, and corrupted this religion became. And when I refer to that well-known Bible verse regarding false prophets, you will know them by their fruits, I see all this controversy and the covenant breaker paranoia to be a fruit of Baha'u'lláh himself. I know about the covenant with the greatest branch and the most great branch, but to me both of those designations sound similar enough to cause a lot of confusion when trying to set up a new leadership. Why didn't he use plain language? It would have helped a lot. If he was God's messenger, he would have been able to foresee the problems with his religion. He could have left a document that was clear and direct about who would be his successor. But he didn't, so I believe all the problems among his descendants were a fruit of his own making. Looking back at the life of Baha'u'lláh, I'm not favorably impressed. If this man was the return of Christ, he sure did lead a different lifestyle with 3 wives and children who were not trained well enough to get along with one another, and no clear chain of authority after dying. That is the legacy of Baha'u'lláh. In the Bible, it is written that God is not the author of confusion. When one is saved by grace, through faith in Jesus Christ, the Holy Spirit comes to live in your heart. It is the source of peace. Not Baha'u'lláh, not Bahá'í law, not local spiritual assembly meetings.